Today we're going to be taking a look at the new Toho Ultimates Blazing Godzilla from Super7. This was a surprise in-stock release not too long ago after a surprise reveal at San Diego Comic-Con 2024. Is this figure red hot or has this mold fizzled out? Let's jump into it. And here we have Ultimates Blazing Godzilla here in the packaging. We've got Blazing Godzilla written here on the side. On the back, Godzilla vs. Destoroyah, 1995 movie poster there. Again, Super7's packaging team absolutely nailing it. I do find it funny that they put 1995 underneath the title of Blazing Godzilla, as if this is a version of Godzilla that we see in the movie. We'll get into that toward the end of this video where we do a comparison with the figure that this figure is trying to replace. Yeah, it looks really nice in the packaging. Looks very reminiscent of the Trendmasters Godzilla. I don't remember the name officially. There's the stuff on the bottom. Let's get them opened up and out of the package. And here we have Blazing Godzilla opened up and out of the packaging. Now I realize I've never actually covered this mold here on the channel. When I started doing reviews or unboxings, that was before I had already picked up a lot of the Ultimates Godzillas that use this mold, and so I think most people that are watching this have a sense of how this guy moves, but we'll break it down really quickly. So the head is on a ball joint, can look that far down, that far up, can pivot side to side. There's a neck joint here, you get a little bit of movement, not too much. The torso is on a swivel. No ball joint, unfortunately. The arms, this joint here is really loose. Just really likes to move around. But you can get them going up about that high at the shoulders. We've got bicep swivel. We've got elbow, really good elbow. Forearm rotation, swivel hinge at the wrists. Moving down, ball jointed hips. Move up that far out, that far in. Kicks forward a good amount. Back decent amount. Knees, a little bit of movement, not too much. Ankle pivot, and ankle hinges. Now the tail here is the old, very first tail system that Super7 implemented, where there's not too much range and too much posability you can get out of it. The tail here is noticeably softer and more loose than the previous ones that I have. Not to the point where like it's not going to be able to like stay up at all. But it's a really strange sort of double whammy between a tail that is not very poseable in the first place, but also a tail that will not hold a pose that you're able to get it into for very long. So that's a bit of a drag. I do have enough experience with other action figure lines that translucent plastic is, you know, a little bit of a gamble in terms of tolerance and how well the joints hold up over time. So it seems like in this case, not the best. Now in terms of accessories, we do get an alternate pair of fist hands, and then hands that are a little bit more relaxed as opposed to the more splayed hands that come with the figure right out of the box. And then we get the roaring head as opposed to the closed mouth head that comes right out of the box. Now, as you may know as someone who has watched my videos, I am not prone to eye fucking my figures. I think that there is a reasonable extent to the features and the paint applications that, you know, when it's at arm's length, I think that, you know, this is the best way to judge it. But I really don't like getting into the finer details because once this is on my shelf, I'm not really going to pay that much attention. But I do think it is worth pointing out some of the paint application issues that I am seeing right out of the box. So there's a couple of scuffs here and there. I don't think there's too much going on in here. This looks at least a little bit more uniform, whereas here this just looks like as the figure was being made or packaged or whatever, it just started getting scuffed around here and there. Now, I have heard that the spines are a point of contention with this release and that the paint chips off very easily. So you can kind of see where the paint is starting to flake off in a little bit of specks. It's really visible on the other side. Here, it's not too bad. Now, someone in the community, Rob, ya boy Shamoy, he sent a video in the Kaiju Collector Discord group showing that he was just trying to scratch a fluff off of the spines and the paint just gave away. There is actually a fluff right here, and so I do want to kind of see if that happens. So obviously, like, I don't want to scratch my figures, but if I'm just removing this, the paint seems to be intact. So yeah, I obviously don't want to push it very much. There's some paint. Just a little bit of friction. I don't think it's getting worse. Let's see here. Well, I don't really see it getting worse to the naked eye. Maybe the camera's picking it up, and there doesn't seem to be anything coming off on my fingers. So my copy seems to be okay in terms of spine paint, which is good. Like, that should be the normal. But I have seen some issues that other folks are having with the figure. Here is the figure next to its Shogun Reaction counterpart. This is the 1200 degrees Celsius Shogun Godzilla figure. This is the Blazing Godzilla Ultimate, and they look very similar, obviously, despite the naming convention, and that is because the 1200 degrees Celsius Ultimate that we saw in Wave 3 is right here, and this is the figure that will not be reissued again in the Ultimates line. If you watched my interview with Brian, he mentioned that Toho, you know, after approving this once, went back and just looked at it and said, you know what, it's a little bit too much. It's a little bit too gross. We're not going to be doing this one again. So here we have the Blazing Godzilla to sort of stand in as an alternative 1200 degrees Celsius Godzilla for your Ultimates line, if you wanted to pose it with the upcoming Destroyer reissue, if you didn't get Destroyer the first time with melting or 1200 degrees Celsius Godzilla over here, now you do have an option for something to match that Destroyer. Between the two of these figures, this is obviously the one that I would pick, and I believe that the aftermarket is already getting kind of nuts for this guy. But I do like this one as well. This is a really funky color scheme. The orange is really vibrant. It's really pleasing to the eye. Believe it or not, this figure is more articulated and can get a greater range of motion than the SH Monster Arts Comic-Con explosive version from way back in the day. And I think that the general consensus among folks that buy Godzilla figures is that Super7 really excels in the areas of stylization and getting out those funky colorways or those unique releases that you wouldn't see from a Haya Toys, you wouldn't see from an SH Monster Arts. Although this was a deco that we saw very early in Monster Arts. As we're starting to see with their Godzilla Day teasers, you're going to see some really wacky and out-of-the-box things that a lot of folks have not seen in decades at this point. And while I wasn't planning to originally pick up this figure, Amazon Canada had it at a pricing error of about 35% lower than it was supposed to be, so I figured, yeah, I'll pick it up, and yeah, I'm glad I do. I like it. I'm glad I have it in my collection. Now, when this was first solicited, there were details in the description on the Super7 website that said that there were going to be smoke effects or fire snap-on flame effects along with this figure. Those obviously did not make it into the final copy. I can't help but feel somewhat disappointed by that. If the description had never said that, I probably wouldn't have paid any attention to it, but it did say that. It did say that there were supposed to be snap-on flame effects, and now I just can't help but imagine what this figure might have looked like with those mist effects from Burning Godzilla repainted to look more like fire, sort of coming off of his body as he's blazing. I think that would have really sweetened the deal for this figure. And I think for those folks who were maybe teetering on the edge, whether or not to pick this figure up or not, I think the added accessories might have tipped them over onto the side of picking it up. I do hope that we get to see those mist effects come back in some form or another. Not that I'm saying I want a whole bunch of more reissues of this mold, but those mist effects have a lot of potential if you ask me, especially in terms of making like a glow-in-the-dark reactor green repaint at some point, or like a reactor glow variant of the 1995 Burning Godzilla. I think that would look really cool. I will say that having this figure come just after the Ultimates -1 or minus color, because I still don't have the regular -1, you really feel the difference in articulation schemes between this very first release, like this is still largely the mold from the first wave of Ultimates, compared to -1, right? The torso articulation being different, the tail definitely being much better on the latest release. You can really feel it, and I can only hope that Super7 comes out with a Heisei 2.0 mold that has a torso ball joint, that has a more articulated tail. As they release more variants of this mold, I'm often finding myself questioning, like, do I really want another copy of this mold? In this case, because I was able to get it at a pretty significant reduction in price, you know, I do like it. The colors are very nice. I think it's a fun release. Your mileage will vary on whether or not this is worth it to you, but I do like the figure. I do like the figure, and it has a presence about it on the shelf. I would like this figure a lot more if it had the articulation scheme of -1. So I hope that they do a Heisei 2.0, and when they start doing, you know, fun variants of that Heisei 2.0, I'll be in line for those right away. I'll put my referral link for this item in the description down below if you want to pick it up and if you would like to support the channel. But let me know in the comment section down below, is this a fun repaint that you're interested in picking up, or are you saving your dough for stuff that you've seen on an actual movie screen? Let me know in the comment section down below. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, I will speak to you again soon. Bye-bye.